says, look here, and files a complaint, the discussion is around, how he is excited, that's how he's choosing to celebrate the win. And this is recorded on broadcast worldwide, So I think the definition is not the issue. We all know what sexual harassment is, that it is unwanted, but it is more the gendered norm, cultural norm thing where men are empowered and they are the alpha male and they are entitled in spite of what a woman may want for them to go ahead and further insist or escalate that it becomes sexual harassment.
Right. Well, ladies, I truly appreciate your insight on this, and I want to hear more, but please stay with us. It's time for a short break. When we return, our guests will help us understand how to fearlessly fight sexual harassment out of our society, despite its many facets. What are your thoughts on this topic? We ask you to share this on our social media platforms at VOA Africa. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Use the hashtag VOA Our Voices. We'll be right back.
In times of change, when the world seems uncertain and what we hear doesn't reflect what we see, we seek the truth. When we are told only part of the story, we lose trust. In moments of crisis, our dreams, hopes, and wishes for a better tomorrow depends on a free press. At Voice of America, we bring you the stories that people take risks to see. We connect the world and unite it with truth. At Voice of America, we show you the whole picture.
You're watching VOA's Red Carpet. My name is Jackson Vunganyi. Thank you so much for joining us each week right here on Red Carpet. We bring you the latest in
health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Linor Moudou, in Washington, every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.
Welcome back. You are watching Our Voices, and we are discussing sexual harassment, especially in the workplace. Our guests, Furaha Joy Saungume, author and founder of Africa in Sexual Harassment Initiative, and Samantha Mwesi Jane, sexual harassment survivor and advocate, who are here to tell us from their personal experience and expertise on how to combat this behavior. One question I have, maybe it can be for both of you. But before we continue our discussion, our VOA reporter based in Luwenge, Malawi, spoke to Mimori Ngosi, a child and women's rights activist, and Grace Ngomba, a primary school teacher, to share their thoughts on the predatory practice.
Well, it's a big challenge when it comes to sexual harassment in workplaces, because this is an environment where someone is supposed to showcase their talents, their skills, and an environment that is supposed to be abuse-free, harassment-free. But you find that even for women, most of them are being harassed, most of them are being sexually exploited, or in the name of opportunities. It doesn't really come on merit. And those are the challenges that most women are facing in workplaces. Number one, we need to make sure that the safeguarding policies that each and every employee or senior employees sign are those policies that are actually working. We have these policies, the SARE policies, the child protection policies, and all other policies that guide us on these issues. Let's make sure that each and every organization has those policies. Each and everyone coming, let's make sure that they sign and they commit to be someone that will abide by those policies. And also, it is good that we can even just create posters where someone is entering the office who say this is an abuse-free area, this is a harassment-free area. It will send a strong message to people. They will know that this area cannot abuse anyone, I cannot exploit anyone, and especially women, because women are the ones that are suffering more when it comes to harassment at work.
This sexual harassment has impacted much in working places because most of the women are not empowered in their working places. They are facing a lot of challenges from men if the men are in upper positions. For example, maybe you want promotion at working place, even if you want a job. It's very difficult to get a job nowadays if men are in position, because first they ask you to do sexual intercourse in order to get a job. Or maybe you want a promotion, they can tell you that if you want to be promoted at this working place, first you have to give us this and this. Maybe they want to sleep with you, they want to do other things that are being harassed to you. It can be stopped maybe if people are educated. We have to do a lot of campaigns. We have to teach people how to avoid this sexual harassment. Also, women has to be empowered so that they can know their rights. They are able to know their rights. They are able to know to make their own decisions. Also, they have to be empowered economically in order for them to stand on their own. If a woman can stand on in their own, they cannot face these challenges.
That's really great. That's really great when our last person said, about education, about, being aware. The awareness, I think, is very important on the actual act itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. So Samantha also mentioned about culture earlier in our conversation, and I want to pose this question for both of you, but maybe Samantha can start answering. Does cultural norms such as patriarchy or respect for elders or supervisors, do you think that it's a strong enabler for sexual harassment, or is used as an excuse?
Definitely it is a strong enabler because you'll find with cultural norms, they are prefaced by gender norms. And in these gender roles, you find that the man has been taught to be, the alpha male. They premise their relations with, even amongst themselves, yes, with aggression and disrespect. So you will find that indeed they've been raised that way. In my particular case, I think the challenge that I had is that this person was very powerful and he took offense to the fact that, I have it all, I'm quite wealthy, as in, how do you reject my advances, So it's an entitlement, definitely premised in patriarchy, because they've been raised and are entitled, but also community facilitates this challenge, bystanders. Usually you'll find the friends of these people know, they've had discussions and they said, I've approached Samantha and she's being difficult. And they will say things like, oh yeah, that one is like that, etc. So community has rallied behind these people, both male and female, to actually protect them, and empower them to continue with this abuse in the workplace.
Mm-hmm. I think this brings us back to the point you raised earlier, unwanted or unwelcome behavior advances, right? And that should be the focus instead of all the definitions. Even in some cultural instances, the unwanted behavior or conduct should be emphasized.
Of course, that is the basic fundamental understanding of what constitutes sexual harassment. But, you know, we define sexual harassment laws because we understand that laws cannot be vague.
Okay.
Laws cannot be vague. That's a basic principle of law. And if a law is vague, then it's void for, you know, just vagueness.
So in that case, what does it take for a sexual harassment law to be effective?
So you would have to have a comprehensive definition of what is sexual harassment. And I think that we've made progress on the international platform. If you look at the ILO C-190, the Convention C-190 on violence and harassment in the world of work, it has a good definition of violence and harassment and sexual harassment. It tends to broaden who is an employee, right, and who is and what is an employer. And the definitions of what is an employee and employer are obstacles in certain countries that have defined what sexual harassment is. For example, if I'm a volunteer, if I'm a trainee, that specific law may not consider me to be an employee, therefore I'm not protected under a sexual harassment law.
And that's really important. And I liked what you said earlier, that the devil is in the details. We all know that the different parts of the continent, they have different laws and the different, you know, legislation being passed, that they do acknowledge that sexual harassment is a crime and it should be punished. But I think that what I'm getting is that the focus must stay on the actual act. That's what, you know, people need to educate themselves on how to fight it. But the actual act, we've agreed that it's actually needs to be curbed.
So maybe Samantha can tell us how civil society organizations are working to enhance these existing legislations.
I think civil society organizations are checks and balances for governments. They call them out. Take, for instance, our work at Aishi, Africa End Sexual Harassment Initiative. We are driving or driven towards changing policies, ensuring, like Furaha says, the definition is not ambiguous, being able to hold people accountable, and also to support victims, you know. One thing is the public sector really is there as, you know, the carrot and stick, so they're the stick. Civil society organizations are the carrot. They offer support to victims, mental health support, ensuring they call out governments to have these cases resolved to their logical conclusion, putting in place structures. So without a doubt, civil society organizations are the backbone for which this agenda can be driven.
I agree, absolutely. I think it's great to collaborate because this is a very complex topic, and I wish we had more time to really dive deep. Maybe we'll bring you guys back to really go further into this. I feel empowered today to know that I need to learn more. That is it for today. Thanks to our guest, Mrs. Samantha Mwesige, sexual harassment survivor, and Furaha Joy Sakai Sangweme, founder of Africa End Sexual Harassment Initiative. Be sure to watch our voices on the VOA website at voaafrica.com, where you can catch up on the latest episode and the world's top news stories. Also, thanks to our editorial and production teams on our voices. On behalf of VOA, thanks for tuning in. Until next time, let's stand up and fight sexual harassment together.
today. I will take you through this amazingness today.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Buki November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Hello and welcome. My name is Nyamgul Agaji. This is the news update. President Bola Tinubu has submitted 4 tax reform bills to the House of Representatives for consideration and quick passage. The president, in a letter at plenary by Speaker Abbas Tajuddin on Thursday, said the bills were designed in line with the objectives of his administration. According to the letter, the bills are the Nigeria Tax Bill 2024, which is expected to provide the fiscal work for tax in the country, and the Tax Administration Bill, which will provide clear and concise legal framework for all taxes in the country and reduce disputes. The others are the Nigeria Revenue Service Establishment Bill, which will repeal the Federal Inland Revenue Service Act and establish the Nigeria Revenue Service, and the Joint Revenue Board Establishment Bill, which will create a tax tribunal and a tax ombudsman. Tinubu said the bills will strengthen fiscal institutions in the country and align with the objective of the government. Ahead of the submission of the report of the 10-member Inter-Ministerial Committee on Implementation of the Supreme Court ruling on local government areas autonomy next week, state governors have begun fresh lobbying against the enforcement of the verdict. The panel, headed by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Judge Akume, has concluded its assignment and is expected to submit its report on or before October 13, according to findings. Under former President Muhammadu Buhari, the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit issued a regulation effective from June 1, 2019, banning transactions on state and local governments' joint accounts. Funds were sent directly to the accounts of the local government. It also limited cash withdrawals from local government accounts to a maximum amount of 500,000 naira per day, with penalties for banks that failed to comply. Supporters and members of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, in Rivers State have staged a street protest against the planned local government elections scheduled to hold on Saturday, October 5, 2024 in the state. The protesters had earlier gathered at the party secretariat in Port Harcourt on Thursday morning before heating the streets for the protests. Our correspondent reports that the placard-carrying protesters are believed to be factional members of the PDP in the state and supporters of the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, FCT, Chief Nyesom Wike. Recall that the Governor, Siminalayi Fubara, has in a statewide broadcast on Wednesday declared Thursday, October 3 and Friday, October 4, 2024 as public holidays in the state to enable residents travel to their various communities to fully participate in the forthcoming Saturday, October 5 local government elections. Fubara further announced strict restriction of vehicular movements of residents from midnight on Friday, October 4 to 5 p.m. on Election Day. Meanwhile, the All Progressives Congress APC in Rivers State has accused the Governor Fubara-led administration of drifting the state into a state of lawlessness by insisting on going ahead with the October 5, 2024 local government elections. The national leadership of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, is expected to meet today, Thursday, in the Federal Capital Territory, FCT Abuja. The meeting is coming after a series of pre-strike notices issued to the federal government by the union over the inability of the government to fulfill previous promises rather. Recall that ASU on September 24 issued the federal government a 14-day strike notice with a vow to shut down the nation's universities if their long-standing grievances were not addressed. The 14-day ultimatum followed a previous 21-day notice issued by the union on August 18 demanding that the government should address their demands. From other parts of Africa, 2 vessels carrying migrants from Africa sank in the Red Sea off the coast of Djibouti, killing 45 people, according to the UN Migration Agency. The boats had departed from Yemen, carrying 310 people, the International Organization of Migration said. The UN agency, which was assisting search and rescue efforts, said on the social media platform X that 32 survivors were rescued. Djibouti's Coast Guard said the tragedy struck some 150 meters off a beach near the northwest Khor Anga region. It said joint rescue efforts was underway and 115 survivors were rescued.
As they approached the Djiboutian coast, the smugglers forced the occupants of the boat to disembark in the middle of the sea. You can imagine it's such a violent area, the sea itself, and a lot of these migrants who didn't know how to swim, even those who knew how to swim, but because of the currents and how strong the sea is, quite a few of them perished. If there is nothing for them to go back home to, you might see them taking to the high seas in a couple of months, and that's what we don't want to happen. We don't want them to risk themselves, to risk their lives. As you know, migration is good. It's what what makes civilization the way it is, creating cross-pollinations, creating the possibility and providing the space for innovation, but it has to be done the right way.
Outside Africa now, UN Chief Antonio Guterres called on Wednesday for an end to the sickening circle of escalation in the Middle East, while specifically condemning Iran over its latest missile attack after facing harsh criticisms from Israel. The Secretary General was speaking at an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council called after Iran on Tuesday launched a massive missile barrage at Israel, which has ramped up its offensive against Hezbollah in Lebanon. Israel's pledge to respond to the Iranian missile attack has raised fears of spiraling region-wide war, sending diplomats scrambling for options to de-escalate the situation. Iran in turn said it would launch an even bigger attack if Israel makes good on its pledge. Israel shifted its focus last month from the war in Gaza, which was sparked by October 7 attacks by Iranian-backed Hamas, to secure its northern border with Lebanon. In business news, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited has again failed to begin fuel production at the Port Harcourt refinery in Rivers State. This is despite the refinery failing to commence operations after about 6 postponements as of August 2024. The promises made to Nigerians by the Federal Minister of Petroleum Resources and NNPC about the refinery have continued to hit brick walls. After the failure of the early August promise, the Chief Financial Officer of the NNPC, Umar Ajia, said the Port Harcourt refinery will commence operations in September 2024. Speaking to journalists in August, Ajia had said petroleum products would be ready for testing before being supplied to the domestic market in September. As at September end, the NNPC did not give an update about the refinery. Our correspondent contacted the NNPC last week for an update about the refinery, but there was no response. The Chief Corporate Communications Officer of the oil firm, Olufemi Soneye, did not reply to inquiries sent to him on September 22 and 30, 2024. However, Marie Techmond SPA, the contractor overseeing the rehabilitation of the Port Harcourt refinery, said it would provide details on the project's completion by or before October 2, which has passed. The contractor conveyed this through a law firm, Olajide Oyowole LLP, in response to a letter from a senior advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana, who had inquired about the completion timeline for the refinery's rehabilitation. In entertainment news, the 2024 Nollywood African Golden Award has held with glitz and glamour in Agbo Delta State. The award was in 3 categories: the celebration of Nollywood artists, individuals and organizations that have supported Nollywood, and the humanitarian award. The award ceremony featured presentation of awards, dance and stand-up comedy. It was attended from all parts of the country as well as other countries such as Gambia, Ghana and Europe. Our Sabah correspondent Akpomejero Friday reports that the organizer and the president of Nollywood African Golden Award, Percy Monday Adoki, said that the yearly event spurs the artists and other awardees to put their best in the trade that had contributed immensely to the development of the country through employment and more. Other awardees at the occasion praised the essence of the Nollywood African Golden Award, noting that the Nollywood industry needs constant celebration and encouragement. They noted that the economic challenges in the country are affecting Nollywood badly, as sales have reduced as well as the cost of production. They called on the government to assist the industry that has taken millions out of the unemployment market for sustainability. And finally, sports news. The groundbreaking partnership contract has been signed between Nigerian company Act Sports Dioyibo Limited and Italy's Torino FC. The deal aims to advance football development in Nigeria and Ghana. The contract signed by Gianluca Cabella of Torino FC and Pastor Samuel R. Oyibo of Act Sports will cover the training of coaches, development of young talents, and establishment of a football academy. This collaboration gives Act Sports the latitude to implement strategies that will enhance the growth of the game in both countries. It builds on Act Sports' recent consulting role with the Delta State Football Association, DFA. Endorsed by Torino FC President Urbano R. Cairo, the agreement is poised to revolutionize the region's football landscape. Comprehensive training programs will transfer elite-level knowledge and methodology from one of Italy's most prestigious academies. According to Act Sports CEO Pastor Samuel R. Oyibo, the DFA's decision to partner with his company as Torino FC's representative in Nigeria is a strategic move. It aligns with the broader efforts to nurture talent and foster long-term grassroots football development. The academy will serve as a breeding ground for young talents, offering them a platform to develop their skills and pursue professional careers.
Hello to everyone. I am Gianluca Cabella, the director of Torino FC Academy in Italy and the world. And I am very, very happy to say that until today we start the partnership with Act Sport in Nigeria and Ghana. Torino FC give the right to Samuel Oyibo to use the brand of Torino FC Academy in Nigeria and Ghana to promotion event and program and training of the guys in football in Ghana and Nigeria. I am very, very happy to work with Samuel and start a big project for everyone. I hope to meet you early, and I say hello and see you later. Bye-bye.
And that's the news update. For more stories, please follow us on Facebook, X and Instagram, and do subscribe to our YouTube channel at Plus TV Africa and Plus TV Africa Lifestyle. You can also view us on limex.tv and Glow TV apps anywhere in the world. My name is Nyamgul Agaji. Thank you for being there.
I will take you through this amazingness today.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Buki November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
I left Nigeria back as far as 2012, and it was a very funny story. As you can see from my social media pages, my best food is amala. So I worked after work. I'm a medical doctor, full-time doctor. After work, I went to this famous place in Oshogbo where they have amala just next to my hospital. So while I was there, I sat down with the food, and then I saw this newspaper advert saying doctors needed urgently in Saudi Arabia. So I abandoned my plate of amala. The rewards were just amazing, and I couldn't believe my eyes. You know, free accommodation, free flights. I was earning, you know, I was going to earn like times 20, you know, of what I earned at the time, in dollars as well. So I packed my bags, went home, packed my bags off to Lagos. I was at Ikeja for the interview. Like immediately? Immediately, I left the amala, went home, packed my bags, and off I went to Lagos. The next day I went for the interview, did the interview. There were loads and loads of people there. Did the interview and got picked, and I was on my way to Saudi Arabia. So from Nigeria, I worked in Saudi Arabia for 2 years, and then I walked around the Middle East, Dubai, Oman, Bahrain, and from there, while I was working, I was writing my exams to work in the UK and the Republic of Ireland. So from there, I got a lecturing position in the UK, and then I was able to pass my exams within that time. So I got my licenses to be able to practice in Europe. So at the moment, I can practice in Europe, I can practice in New Zealand, I can practice in the Middle East, and of course in Nigeria as well. So my journey hasn't been straightforward. My journey has been from Nigeria, scattered around the Middle East, and then Europe. The first culture shock I faced was I landed on a Thursday and obviously Friday, but it didn't click that Friday was a day to be respected in the Middle East, in the Muslim society. So I got up, was looking for food. I got out of my house, and after walking for like 5 minutes, it still didn't click that I was the only one in the environment, okay? So after walking about, say, 500 meters, I suddenly saw a car just drove in front of me and blocked me, and then I saw all these guys in beards just came, and of course I didn't. So the guy just came and said, "What are you doing out here? It's Friday. You're supposed to be praying." I'm like, I paused, and then he says, "Okay, are you a Muslim or a Christian?" "Yeah, are you a Muslim or a Christian?" I swear I didn't know whether to say Muslim or Christian because I didn't know what was going to happen. If you say Christian and they start flogging you, if you say Muslim, why are you not in the mosque? So I paused, and the guy said, "Bring out your Ikama." I showed him my Ikama, which is like a resident permit. That shows your religion, so it shows it shows I'm a Christian. And then he said, "Where are you coming from?" I said, "I just got into Saudi yesterday. I don't know what's going on." Then he said, "Well, today's Friday, Jumat. You have to be praying. If you're not praying, you respect it. Stay in your house between this period." So I said, "Okay." He said, "Everywhere is closed. You can't even get food." So I said, "I'm sorry. I will walk back right now." And then another one that was amazing, even though I was a doctor, I couldn't speak to female patients. So if a man comes in with a woman and the woman is the one with the problem, you cannot talk face to face to her. You cannot ask her. You have to ask the husband, say, "Okay, why have you brought this woman here?" And then the husband would. So my first experience, I spoke to this woman who had a breast lump, and I was talking. The husband was just looking at me. So when I finished, he was answering me. And when I finished, the guy just lost it. "How can you be talking to my wife?" I was like, I'm not toasting your wife, guy. You know, calm down. So the medical director had to give me an education, you know, yeah. So we were able to just placate the guy at that time. So that was one culture shock for me as well. I've traveled a lot of countries. I've seen 50 different countries now. I would say that in Europe, okay, so some very interesting ones. When I got to Europe, I was in my house just sitting on my own, and friends said, "Come on, there's this birthday party happening, let's go and eat." I said, "Birthday party? Oh yeah, let's go now, where's the venue?" So I went to the venue, we ate, we ordered, ate everything, finished. birthday party. At the end of the day, the celebrant came and said, this is the bill. And in my head, I'm thinking, bill for what? I should pay that you invite. I was in my house. I was in my house. You invited me. I came to it. Now I have to pay the bill. So that was one. The second one was, of course, driving. In Nigeria, you're on the left side, but in the UK, you're on the right side. So that was another culture shock for me in Europe. Okay. It's important to state that I always talk about the way to live legally within the legal bounds without violating any international laws, which is opposed to what people do, most people do. And if you notice very well, people live, you know, it's upward movement. You're living from poorer countries to rich countries. And interestingly, it's not as if the people who leave their countries illegally, generally speaking now, are not the poorest of the poorest when you put the standard of their country into context. They're not the poorest of the poorest. But because they're looking for better opportunities, they're looking for a place where they will get, you know, larger finances, a better standard of living, education, good access to health. That's why they're leaving. So they don't care how they do it, so long as the promises, you know, they've been given good promises, then they just take that pathway. I always use my social media handles on Instagram, on YouTube, Waka Waka Doctor, to tell people of the legal ways. And the reason why people most times don't want to follow this pathway is because I would say it's inherent laziness, because you have to do the work. You know, this illegal pathway, they're possibly going to say, pay this amount of money, we will just move you across the border. But they don't consider the consequences that come with it. This way that I preach involves a lot of, you know, work. You have to do a lot of work. So it means that you have to do research, you have to make applications, you have to pay little amount of fees, and then get the end result. So if you're not open to working, I give tips, I point you towards the right direction, but if you're not open to working, then it becomes a difficult task for you. So the easiest way is to keep educating ourselves. We keep educating these people and passing the information across. And I mean, this is one thing I'm doing now, and it's one thing I've been doing for the last 18 months, using Instagram, Twitter, YouTube to pass the information across. If someone comes to you to say, okay, I'm going to take you to Europe, you're a cake baker, I'm going to get you scholarship, there are documents you want to see. There are documents you want to see. You have to help you get an original visa. Do you have a work permit? Have you seen an original work permit? Have you called your employers over there to confirm that I have a real job and I'm coming to resume? So that again brings me to my first point, that people are mentally lazy. They don't want to do the work. Because when someone gives you documents and say, oh, this is your document, we're going abroad, you should say, give it to me. Let me confirm if it's real. Let me confirm if it's original. If it's a work permit, I'm going to call my employers to see if this job is real. If it's a school admission, I'm going to ring up the school to find out if it's real. I told you behind the cameras, I said, people have this mentality that, you know, things work outside just the way it works in this country. It's wrong. If you pick up the phone and call an admissions office, they will talk to you. If you pick up the phone and call an employer, they will talk to you. You're just looking for information. And if the information is real, they definitely get it. So, like I said, the first way to help with spread of information, help curb this is spread of information, educating people. And that's what I've been doing for the last 18 months using my social media platforms. Nothing good comes extremely easy, okay? You have to be patient. I tweet sometimes, I say that, I say, when you travel abroad, your life changes. You know, your skin becomes fresh. Your smile is different, okay? There's peace of mind, you know? Things come to you easily. You can actually actualize your dreams. You can live out your dreams right in front of you because there's a system that supports that. So my advice is, when you go abroad, be patient, keep working hard, don't stop, don't relax, you know, have a vision, write it down, Allow your eyes see that vision, you know, consume it, and continue to work towards it. It's simply as basic as that. That would be my advice. Save, and always call home, because one of the downsides to going abroad is that it can be boring sometimes. And that's why you should call friends. Don't cut people off. Call friends. You know, always call home if you miss home. Like, I'm home now because I missed Amala. I missed all those things, so I came home. So yeah, that's my advice. Keep working. Keep your head down. Of course, keep your connections back home so that you can always come back to them. This is a huge subject. It's a huge subject, and it's not something I can share in 1-2 minutes. So I'm going to say that the first thing you want to do is open an Instagram account if you don't have an Instagram account, and look for me, Waka Waka Doctor, because I give tips. Now, there are job boards across Europe, across Asia. You cannot streamline your choices and say that, oh, I just want to be in Canada. I just want to go to the US. I just want to go to the UK. There are 195 different countries in the world. So you have to say that I'm open to any one of them. And most of these countries have job boards, okay? Websites, different websites where you can submit your applications. You go through rigorous interviews. You submit documents. If you then succeed, they are able to process your work permits and employ you. Now, some people will say, oh, I've tried the UK, it didn't work out, so they give up. But there are different countries in the world. There's Turkey, there's Lithuania, there's Kazakhstan. I know teachers that I've spoken to, in fact, 6-7 of them in the last 4-5 months who have left Nigeria to Kazakhstan, right? They teach English. They earn at least $1,800 in Kazakhstan, which is much more than what they will earn in Nigeria. So there are 195 countries. I post them, I mean, almost every day on my Instagram channel. So you can watch and see some of these job boards and apply for jobs. Some basic truths and facts is not every doctor can leave the country. So even if doctors are leaving, more doctors would graduate and you still have doctors around. But doctors are leaving in their large numbers every day. So the future of medicine in Nigeria is very bleak, because you have the extremely intelligent doctors leaving, going abroad, because the system abroad is extremely encouraging. The system abroad gives you opportunities to become greater than what you can ever think or imagine. People keep writing their exams, people keep going for interviews because the system allows it. So the advice straight up I'll give to the Nigerian government is, first and foremost, create a platform that encourages us as doctors. Facilities, give us things we can, it's not as if, you know, things we only see in the books, things we can see and work with. Pay us money. I worked in Osun State. My salary in 2011 was 90,000 naira. I was doing 2 jobs and I couldn't earn 120,000 naira, 2 jobs. When I went to Saudi Arabia, salary was $5,000. Look at the discrepancy, it's too huge. And they were owing us 6 months. You owe someone 6 months. How can, I was seeing 200 patients in a day. 200 patients. How, I mean, the first 10 patients I see would get the best out of me. The other ones, the truth, it's just the truth. The other ones would be people, that's it. It doesn't work that way. Create a good culture, a good environment for doctors to work. Pay them properly. You know, give them, you know, standard remuneration that they can compare with their friends and colleagues abroad and say, okay, yes, we you know, it's commensurate to the work we do. Nigerian government really has to improve. The future of Nigerian doctors, sadly enough, is abroad, and countries are asking for them. Like, the PLAB exam is an incredibly easy exam to just write and pass. So people are writing it and moving, you know. So if Nigeria cannot improve these parts, payments, facilities, you know, then it's a poor tale. I would end on this note to say that this is a popular theme that I've always passed across, to say that travel is not necessary of money, but of courage. And the reason is because it takes courage to decide to leave a place you've been for many years and go to a place that's brand new. You're going to be leaving your friends, you're going to be leaving your family, you're going to be leaving your job, you're going to be in search of ways to make money, search of better career. So it's often very difficult. The first step is the most difficult one, the most daunting one, saying, I want to move. It's very difficult. But I would always encourage you to take that step. When you start, you will get to the end. Don't wait, start now. It's another year, it's 2022. My aim is to get at least 2,000 people abroad. So if we can do that, we've succeeded. Okay? There are better opportunities out there. If you're attaining this level right now in Nigeria, if you go abroad, you'll be times 20. That's it. So start now, make the move. If you're in town, if you catch me in any of the cities abroad, you can holler at me and I'll be there. Traveling abroad, migrating abroad is not age specific. You know, age is not a limitation. Even if you're in your 50s, you're in late 50s, you can still go abroad. I always talk about academics because academics seems to be the easiest path. But even if it's true career, like I've said earlier, you can go search for these job boards that will give you employment. Again, experience counts. I'll give you an example. Places like Australia are in need of people with huge experiences in different fields. Whether you're a cameraman, you're a technician, you're a chef, if you have 5-10 years, electrician, 5-10 years of experience, and you apply for jobs in Australia, they'll take you. Estonia, Lithuania, these are places that are in need of vocational, you can do vocational studies. If you're not a skilled worker, so to say, these are places that are in need of you. So age is not a factor. So even if you're 50 and you have 15 years of experience to back this, they're looking for you.
For a lot of people, the Nigerian dream is to leave the country onto greener pastures. But the irony is the treacherous experiences they have to face to get to these so-called greener pastures. Just like the stories of Azu and many who were tricked into what they thought was a better life, in fact, turns out to be the worst experience they never dreamt of.
Before I left Nigeria, I was doing a business. I was selling food with my mom in a particular oil company, and also I was a teacher. So I was doing the two together, assisting mom in the shop and also teaching in a school. So when school closes, in the morning before leaving, I help her with cooking, putting things together, buying the drinks, arranging everywhere. Then I go to work, and then when I come back, I continue. But before then, I was in school. I was supposed to graduate. I studied architecture in Enugu State University of Science and Technology. So in my finals, that was 2014, I found out that I had a lot of issues. It actually started when I got into school. I got into school 2010. It was 2-9 to 10 set. So when we got into school, school fee was increased from 72,000 to 102. So from that 102, it was very difficult for me to get my school fee the way I was supposed to get it. Like, the first school fee was easy, but then subsequently it became really hard for my dad to put it together. So I paid my fees late. Now, ESUT had this policy that if you pay your school fee, you get exam number. So almost all my exams from the second year till final year was written without exam number. So during the time they were publishing, because what they do is in the final exams, they will write out all your outstanding results. You look for them, either go to the lecturers and look for them, and then at the end of the day, the ones you can't find, you will write. So I saw about 29. I started moving around, going to lecturers. It was as if they would say signing in and out, no recording. Signing in and out, no recording. So the whole thing got so complicated. It was just something I couldn't take. Well, I wasn't patient enough to go to as many lecturers as I could, but getting from my HOD, the head of department as at then, he just told me, this is the much we can do searching for all of this, because even his own course then, he was taking construction methods, even his own course then was not recorded. So he just told me, if my own course is not recorded, it means every other one you've written wasn't also recorded. So I assumed that was it. Getting home that day, I cried a lot. I called home. I told my dad. He was like, be patient. Just try and see if you can look for them. I just quietly packed my bags. Without deferring the admission, without doing anything, I just packed my bags and I left. After everything, then I've started this teaching, and then I joined MOM. I met someone who was really interested in me, and he told me he wants to get married. I just felt like, okay, you can handle this, you can get married and all of that. So in the long run, I got pregnant, and I think that was what ended the relationship, because he insisted get rid of the pregnancy. I was pretty sick. I was very sick, so I think he couldn't handle the stress and all of that. He said, get rid of the pregnancy. In my family, you don't do that. And that was my very first pregnancy, so everyone was like, you were not there. I gave birth to this baby. So 4 months down the line, that was 2017, I gave birth 2017 March. 4 months down the line, family got a call that the people abroad will need 4 people. So they are like extended family relations. They are not really very close to us. I don't even know them. Like, I've never met them, but some of my cousins have. So those ones that have are the ones that were contacted. And then I didn't even have an idea, because my baby was just very tender about 4 months after, you know, so they started talking about it. I was hearing Mom on calls constantly. They were talking about they need someone, or she should see if I can agree. My younger sister was still in school. She was in her, I think, in her 2nd year or so. So since I was the only one who is out of school, they can't talk to my younger brother about that, because he also is in school. So since I was the only one who was out of school, every eye was on me, despite the fact that I just had a baby. So my mom talked to me. I said no. And then the idea was, my baby is still tender. I can't travel with my baby and walk. So she said, my mom is very young. So she said she will take care of the baby for me to travel. Mom said, this is more like an opportunity for you to do everything you want to do. You want to go to school, you can walk there, go to school and do everything. So that was everyone's idea, except my dad, my younger sister, and I. No one talked to my younger brother about it because he was not around. He was in Auchi then. So I think we were standing alone. All my aunties were with my mom. So one of them invited me over that night. She sat me down, you know. you're working really hard, you go to farm, because when I gave birth to my baby, I was now trying very hard to see that there's no lapses in the family. We all hands on deck, kind of. Let everyone work hard to make sure that everything is going on well. So you work really hard. So for me, this is like an opportunity. And then she had her son that just left to Ghana. I don't know what was going on with the guy as at then. So I didn't really ask if he was doing well. But for me, everyone believes he's doing well. So these opportunities too, for me, you have to. So when she explained everything, told me you need to really try this out, because this is like an option that will help you to stop the suffering. You're going to farm, you're doing a lot of things. Just try this option. That night was the night I now decided, okay, since everyone is saying they will take care of my son, I'll go. They told us France, the three of us, 3 ladies, and then the guy, Italy. They are my cousins as well. So 2 ladies plus me, that's 3. Then the guy, because they said 3 ladies and a guy. Then the guy was to stop at Italy. It's not like the guy is joining us to France. So that was it. We left. Okay, there was no plan, no process. That's the truth. There was no process. They just told me, pack your bags, meet us in Benin. So I packed my bags. And then while packing your bags, make sure you have like 2-3 trousers. Make sure you have like a sweater, a thick one, because it's really cold over there in Europe. Make sure you have, they just told us a few things that they felt was necessary that we should have with us. So those were the things I put together. And then I got myself a backpack. I made sure I bought enough food for my son. Someone I initially planned I was going to do exclusive breastfeeding for. I had to cut short at 4 months just to join them. So we got to Benin, spent about 2 days there preparing. No serious preparation. They were just telling us they are preparing the documents. Everything will be, we'll get all of them in Abuja. When we get to Abuja, that the people over there, they are the ones who would give us the necessary requirements. So it was just like, we just came there for brief information, and then we left. We got to Kano. We passed the night in Kano. But before Kano was when I started suspecting that something is not really going on right. We're trying to enter the north then. Some of these NDLEA, these drug enforcement agency, they saw us, and the man was like, everyone in this bus calm down. What came down? I even felt maybe they wanted to search the guys. But funny enough, they took all bags. It was more like they took the young people's bags, and then they kept it in one place. They would open it, not them. I don't tell you, it's not them. I'm like, I don't have anything in my bag. So I was getting really scared. But the guy with us was like, calm down, nothing is going on. They just want to check. And he already had an idea of what was going on. So when they checked, they asked every one of us to pay 2,000. So the other girl, I don't know her, we just met in the bus, was putting on this long dress. Is it Jalamia they call it? Something like that. That was what she was putting on. And then she was just saying a lot of things. Not be trouble they travel, not be trouble at the travel, and not commit any crime. Or now, you know, she was saying a lot of things, and she wasn't even using any polite language, like you're talking to officers. I beg you, make nobody disturb her. Now travel, she they travel, you know, Benin accent. So I was like, travel, they travel. Is it like we are going to the same direction or something? So I started suspecting, as at then, that I don't really know what these guys are talking about. But at the end of the day, the guy paid. He paid for all of us, and the 4 of us, 8,000, and then we left. So they took 2,000 from each person, and then they allowed us to leave. We moved on till we got to Abuja. We passed the night there. There was no response. Nobody brought documents. They said the documents, the person said we should keep coming. When we get to Kano, we'll get it. So we got to Kano, actually. Someone came to pick us. The guy that came to pick us was driving with one hand. He doesn't have one hand. I was scared. Like, but before he started driving, as soon as he just said, quick, 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 enter. Every one of us jumped inside the car. The next thing, he started giving us this stuff. Is it hijab? Yeah, that jab for everyone. So I didn't know how to wear it. So everybody was like, okay. So it was funny, kind of. I was like, is this like what they do in the North? Is it compulsory? Even Christians will have to wear this. So then my boss was like, you asked a lot of questions. Just wear it. We had to. So we moved on till we got somewhere. It was kind of bushy environment. The guy stopped. They brought another car that took us to a particular enclosed area. And then that was where we were for a while. And then after a while, bike came, bike carried us from there to one place. I can't even tell. The people on the streets were doing, I don't know what was going on, but it was funny, but not funny. Because the bike guys were not even riding normal. They were riding and jumping. In fact, these things that we see in movies, that like James Bond something, it happens in Nigeria. Like I'm like, what's going on here? The guys were not careful. I had to hold the bike man so that I don't fall off. And someone was behind me, but I was still not comfortable to tell you how rough those guys were. So we got to another place. Then I saw a lot of Nigerians. I saw a lot of people who were traveling actually. So they were saying different things, everyone with their own idea about where they are going to. And then I met this lady. She wasn't looking very okay, but she said the person who asked her to come is her sister, and that's because I think she's educated, but she has this health issues that the person said as soon as she gets to Italy, they'll come pick her up and then she'll get her treatments. So people had different reasons why they were traveling. The ones I met there actually, everyone had different reasons, some for medical attention, some for money, some who were promised jobs. So I felt kind of, I felt unhappy at first. And then I was saying some things, and then one guy came to me and said, see, if you talk too much, most of these people that are around here, they will lock you up here and then everybody will go, you will not go because you're asking a lot of questions. So that calmed me kind of. I had to like stop asking questions. After a while, they came, took passports, as in passport photograph of everyone. And then it was that guy, that guy's idea of not talking that made me not to ask anything. Few hours later, they came with passports. The passport that got to me had my picture, not my name, and every other detail on it wasn't me. So when they gave me the passport, okay, I had to memorize everything on the passport. Like, you are compelled to, you don't have a choice because that's like your gateway to wherever you're supposed to go to. So we took these things. Few minutes later, the bike guys came back. They took all of us again. You know the bike the person you entered with before, just enter with the person and then we moved on. So we continued till we got to the border between, I don't know if it's Niger and Nigeria though. So the immigration officers there, they'll take your passport, ask you, what's your name? You tell them your name. How old are you? You tell them. They just check. They give it back to you. So it wasn't like they were doing any critical check. They just, that question was the only thing they asked me. I don't know if they asked others any other thing, but that was what they asked me. And that was a pass for me because as soon as I said my name, and then I skipped the part where I had to teach one of my sisters because she is not learned. She got married when she was in primary 6, so she didn't go to school, and she has been in the village all her life. So I had to like teach her her name, the name on the distance. So I was helping her memorize her own name as well as memorizing mine. So it was something very silly that, of course, if I had a clue about irregular migration or human trafficking, I would have at least known that I was getting into something stupid, something that wouldn't be good for me. And then we left. The bike guys took us to a certain place where they had buses. They put a lot of us in one bus. I had to sit in the booth. So in that booth, it was raining that evening. It was, let's say, around 8. before the bus left. So it was raining. The raindrop was on my body. Despite the fact I didn't have enough clothes on, I was cold. I was shivering. And it's not like when you're shivering, somebody else would help you because everyone is actually trying to save themselves. So no one is actually looking out for you. So you have to do something to help yourself. So I had to like draw. There is something they used to cover the bus. I had to like draw that thing to cover myself. So we moved on. After a while, I think they heard police, police. The next thing, the drivers drove to a certain place, parked the car, zoomed off. We didn't know where they went to. After a while, other cars came. If they call your connection, you join another vehicle. If they call your connection, you join another vehicle. Just like that, they just shared us into different groups. We left. Spent about a day plus on the road till we got to Agadez. Now, when we got to Agadez, someone just told us that this is Agadez. Oh. I say, yeah, Agadez. I met some people, and then the first room where they took us to everywhere was filled with flies. I couldn't take it, so I was like, oh God, what is this? Those girls there, they started laughing. They were laughing. I was like, how are you guys comfortable in this kind of environment? They said, you never see anything, you know. They stood up, left the room, came back, they were still laughing. I was like, no. So my sisters told me that you should just try and keep quiet and just observe rather than say your feelings. It's as if you're just showing them who you are. I just kept quiet. I was not enduring the whole thing. They fly everywhere. I sat in a corner. I was just reflecting over the journey from Nigeria to that point. A few days, about 4 days later. So that should be like, okay, that's like 4 days, 4 to 5 days now to get to that place, because it was from Benin to Kano itself was a day till the next morning. So from that Kano to that Agadez in Niger was about, okay, let's just say 3 days. Okay, so from that point to that night, they didn't actually move us. We're still there till about 4 days. And then on the 4th day, they came, they told us, okay, to get ready. Everybody get ready, you'll be leaving this night. People were excited. Me, I wasn't really excited because I didn't really understand we are leaving. Like, we are leaving to where? So my boss was like, they said we are going to buy gallon. Buy gallon? We don't have money. We didn't even, they gave us just 10,000 naira when we were leaving each. So we don't have money. How much is the gallon? He said they are selling in Sefa. It's not Naira, so because we are not in Nigeria. So I said, okay, find out how much it is. At the end of the day, what we had left with us was unable to buy us the gallon because we were buying small ones, big ones, small ones for each person. So at the end of the day, we sold the only phone that was with us. And the phone was not in our possession. It wasn't in my possession or in the girl's possession. It was only the guy that was authorized to use the phone to update them. So it was more like they were working with the guy. These people carrying us were working with the guy. I've never met the guy before. He's not really my cousin. He's married to one of our cousins, so I don't even know him. Now, it's more like they've already had this whole thing planned out before calling on us to come and join the guy. So the guy said he's going to sell the phone. When we get to Libya, he will get another phone. Me, I wasn't worried initially. Just get us water, since they said everybody will need water. We didn't bother to ask, what do we need the water for? Since they said buy, just buy. He bought the gallon, they filled it with water. So we had to carry it to the place where they were loading that night. So in the night, they started loading. I noticed each Hilux was carrying about 29 people. For my Hilux, they had about 29 people. So now the guys, the ladies will sit in, the guys will sit around the Hilux. So they have this wood that the guys will use to sit. And then they were arranging it like that till it got to our own turn. Now for the girls, you sit, you open your legs, someone else sits, just like that. That was the arrangement. Then for me, I had to sit around the, what's it called, where you can rest your back. But I was sitting on a keg of fuel. That's another story. I was sitting on a keg of fuel. So for me, I felt that was a comfortable place, right? I put my bag on the keg of fuel, and then I sat on it. So I was feeling like that's more comfortable. I was even saying the other people sitting inside the hillocks will be feeling hot and they will be having a lot of challenges, so I don't want to stay there. I prefer where I was. Now, within one day from that place, because all the hillocks moved at the same time, like all the vehicles moved at once, they started going. It was as if the more we went in, if they drive from one, would I even say up to a pole, the vehicle will sink. All the guys will come down. The lighter ladies will stay inside. If you're heavy, you come down. The guys will have to remove the sand. The hillocks will move to the front. Wall jumping again. The hillocks will move. Get just one pole again. This thing continued for the whole day. It was tiring. And to worsen it, they were beating the guys. Like, when it's time to pack this sand, if they don't see your hand doing it, the drivers have this whip, this pipe that you use to put fuel in their vehicle was what they were using to whip the guys. Like, at some point I started crying because there was this guy that looked really soft. I don't think he's from Edo State. I can't remember where he's from. Well, at some point he broke down, like, he was like, which kind of suffer be this? Which kind of suffer be this? Now travel, they travel, I no keep person, you know. They were beating them in such a way that ordinarily it was heartbreaking. After that whole day, in the night, they packed us somewhere. And then I met someone from my place, from another hillocks. The guy started telling me stories, we were just gisting. And then it was more like a few hours, let's say it was getting to like midnight. This kind of breeze just started blowing towards us and then bringing sand. It was then it dawned on me that most of the sand heaping was actually done by that breeze. It was like rain. So very scary. I just told the guy, is this thing going to bury us? He smiled and said, if you bury us now, it's just like we are trying to make it in life and then we did not survive. I was like, God, don't allow me to die here. That was the first fear. So the guy said, just lie down and use something to cover yourself. If you cover yourself, probably you'll sleep off. Because I didn't see sleep. Most people were already sleeping, but I could not imagine myself sleeping in that kind of environment. I didn't know there was more waiting for us ahead. So after that night, the next morning, the drivers came. I took my brush. I want to brush my teeth. They said, wait, I want to brush. One guy said, with which water? This water that we are reserving, we want to drink. I said, I'm not going to brush. The guy said, even buy brush. They were laughing, you know. Some kind of weird behavior from some of the guys and the ladies. They were laughing. I better go reserve the water. I said, hey, God, so I'm not going to brush my mouth. I can't even wash my face. The guy said, you don't even brush, you wash face, you know. They were just saying a lot of things. And then the driver didn't even wait for anyone to brush, so we had to jump in. That was the first heartbreak for me. Like, okay, now I'm going to just be smelling and dirty till we get to our destination, and who knows how long this journey is.
Hello Nigeria, hello Africa. You're welcome to Sports Business with Orufo Ezaga. You're watching Plus TV Africa, and we're reaching you live from our studios in Victoria Island, Lagos. Now that was Katsina United fans displaying the newfound interest in the Nigerian Premier Football League. It is also a good mood for us as today we celebrate the 64th Independence Day anniversary in Nigeria. Things are changing. Things are tough, actually. But by the day, we're seeing that things are beginning to change. And, it's our Independence Day. Nigeria is growing. And I would like to use this forum to call on everybody to contribute a little bit to making sure that Nigeria becomes the successful nation that we all desire to see. Today we're going to be talking about football, and I believe that football and the Nigerian Premier Football League is one of the ways we can begin to change our country, because the impact of football in any country is huge, and in Nigeria we have not witnessed this for the last 3 decades or so. And I think that we have reached a turning point and things are beginning to change. And when the Football League in this country hits its stride, I have no doubt that it would, impact on the economy seriously, creating lots of jobs and, attracting a lot of wealth into the country. All right, today, so we're going to be talking about the NPFL. And we're going to be talking about football generally across the continent. Today, we have an excellent guest who's going to be talking to us about football in South Africa. He's part of the people that developed the South African Premier Soccer League into the success that it is today. It is actually the most financially successful league in Africa, and we hear that it is one. How do we make it a success? Joining us to talk about this will be Dr. Robin Peterson. He is a former CEO of the Premier Soccer League in South Africa, that's the PSL, and he was also the CEO of the South African Football Association, which is called for short SAFA. Now, Dr. Robin Peterson is a he's a co-founder of SPN Africa. He's the CEO, actually, of SPN Africa. And they are a Pan-African news, sports news and streaming portal. And he's also the co-initiator of the Global Safe Hub campaign, an award-winning social enterprise that uses football as a key part of a transversal youth development intervention. Safe Hub started in Cape Town in 2008, and today it's across South Africa as well as in Germany and the United States, and they're currently developing a new site somewhere in Cote d'Ivoire. He's an author, a public speaker, and a former academic who has a PhD from the University of Chicago. That's who we have today. So I'd encourage you now to, stretch your legs and take, a breather, because over the next 45 minutes, Dr. Peterson is going to be talking to us, he's going to be sharing with us his vast knowledge on football business in South Africa as well as on the continent. We're going to go on a short break for just about a minute or less. And when we return, we'll have Dr. Peterson ready to share his knowledge. You're welcome back to Sports Business with Orufo Ezaga, and you're watching Plus TV Africa, and we're reaching you live from our studios in Victoria Island, Lagos. Joining us from South Africa is Dr. Robin Peterson, a former CEO of the PSL as well as SAFA. And he's going to be sharing his experience running football in South Africa and developing the PSL into becoming the top league in Africa in terms of revenues. All right. Hello, Robin.
How are you, Orufo? It's very nice to be with you and with all the rest of those who are joining us today.
Okay. So how do we begin? Let's talk about the PSL first. lots of good things are happening in the PSL, you know, and it's stuff that would like stuff that would like to happen to our league in Nigeria, but it's not happening at the moment. You know, how did you guys build the PSL into such a top property? You know, starting from when it began in 1996, I think. If I remember correctly, or if my research is right, you became the second CEO of the PSL. So you're very conversant with what happened in the early days. How did you envision the PSL, and you know, how far have you come based on what you envisioned all those years ago?
So thank you. Yeah, I was very fortunate to have been CEO of the Premier Soccer League. I was actually the third CEO. The second one was John Lela. He was there for a few years.
Okay.
I came to the PSL having been an academic, so not having been in football administration, but I had been doing some consulting work for SAFA for a few years, and then had become the general manager for the 2006 World Cup bid company. You remember we bid for the World Cup in 2006 up against Germany and England and Brazil and Morocco, and Germany of course won it with that very controversial result of vote in 2000, in the year 2000. And actually while we were in Zurich commiserating at the end of the announcement of the vote, I got approached by one of the club owners back then. He was then the owner of Mamelodi Sundowns, one of the Krop brothers. That was before Dr. Motsepe took over as the owner. And asked whether I would, and told me that the PSL was, I knew they were looking for a CEO, and he encouraged me to apply, which I did, and I got the position. The PSL at that time was in a very different state to what it is now. So maybe that getting that perspective also gives one in other countries like Nigeria some hope.
Okay.
In those days, the PSL was fairly new. It had established itself. It was well functioning, but its funding was relatively poor. I remember, if my memory serves me correctly, in those days we were able to give each club a monthly grant. If I remember correctly, it was about 100,000 rand, maybe less. From which they then had to pay for run their team, pay their travel costs, etc. And these days, you know, that figure is 10, 15, 20 times that amount. So the key challenge that we identified back then, there were two. The one was we were not getting great crowds, except for the derby, which was of course the derby between Kaizer Chiefs and Orlando Pirates. That was the only match that we had a full stadium. The crowds were not there in the way they are now. And our television contract at that stage was with the South African Broadcasting Corporation, SABC, which was a state broadcaster. And SuperSport were knocking on my door back then and saying, listen, we need to... when I look back on what I probably think was my greatest achievement there, it was doing the first SuperSport television contract.
Okay.
We were able to carve out a separate contract with SuperSport for a midweek series of games. So what we did was we committed to, I can't remember the number, maybe 20 games that would happen on a Wednesday night or a Tuesday night. It caused some challenges for some clubs because we had to up the floodlighting and the lighting conditions in the grounds. And there was a lot of skepticism on SuperSport board side that this would actually lead to something. Little did they know, I think, except for the very visionary, he was at that stage a board member of the PSL, Imtiaz Patel. But Imtiaz realized, I think, back then that South African football would actually drive SuperSport's growth in a massive way. And so we were able to carve out and run for the first year that SuperSport television package. And as we all know, I think the story goes that maybe 3 years later, SuperSport took over the main contract from SABC, and from there on, I think the league has grown from strength to strength, because the money that they received from the broadcast right was then reinvested into the clubs. And that's the most critical point. It's all good and well to get a big amount of money coming in, but that money then got reinvested into the clubs on an equal basis. So every club got the same grant every month. And from that, it meant that you were able then to see the smaller clubs starting to have the resources to hire players, to keep good coaching staff, to improve their marketing, and then the stadium started to fill up because the product that people were seeing on television was a good product. And that kind of was a virtuous circle. If you have a poor product on TV, people will stay away. If you have a good product on TV, people will think, wow, I'm missing out. I need to be there. I need to go there. And they started, and I think that was the beginning of the massive growth of the PSL. There were some other things as well, which we can get into, and I think probably if I were to name them, it would be your television rights, it would be governance. I think governance, both at a league level and at a club level, are critical elements for success. Club licensing, marketing, and then player contracts and player conditions. I think those would be the things that I would say have been at the core of the PSL success.
Okay. When you talked first about the struggles of the PSL at the start, right? If you could expand on that a bit, what sort of struggles did you have? I'll give you an example. Like in Nigeria, for instance, we have a problem with, fans coming to the stadium. Maybe that's a function of the sort of product that they're getting. But here, as with much of sub-Saharan Africa, you find that the success of the European leagues, the more glamorous European leagues, have generally affected our leagues and the popularity of our leagues. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, you talked about corporate governance. That's still a problem here, even though efforts are being made to clean up things. All right. So yes, there's we have these problems. But I noticed that with the PSL, you still had some sort of financial support from the start. If my research is right, from the time you started until now, there's been some sort of sponsorship, at least for the name sponsorship for the league, which would have injected some money. You said you were paying clubs about 100,000 rand, which was a pittance compared to today. But clubs in Nigeria today don't even get 100,000 rands a month to run. So exactly where are we supposed to get this sort of support that we need to then up our game in the MPFL?
So again, it's kind of either a virtuous or a vicious circle that happens. So let's start with a virtuous circle.
Okay.
So the virtuous circle begins with a product that sponsors are interested in attaching their brand to. That's where it begins. Now, why do sponsors attach their brand to a product? They attach it because they're wanting to achieve a certain marketing reach in a way that reaches a certain number of people and does so in a way that brings excitement and passion to their own brand. So from the beginning, PSL had always had corporate sponsor. In those days, it was SA Breweries, who were the league sponsor at the time. We also had a sponsor in MTN who was sponsoring at that stage the first division. So the professional football, or the National Football League structure in South Africa runs both the Premier League, the PSL, the Premier Soccer League, and the First Division. When I was CEO, the First Division was divided into two streams. It wasn't a national product, it had two streams. It had the coastal and inland stream. And one of the things that I started the process and we really were trying to do was to create a national First Division, which has subsequently come into being. So we had, first of all, a sponsor like SA Breweries, really good sponsor for football. And we had other, it was at the beginning of the mobile telephony startups in a way. They've been going 5 years or so, mobile telephones. And so we had Vodacom and MTN, two South African mobile phone companies, also putting money both into clubs and also into tournaments. So there were a number of tournaments that we had. So we had the league. We also had a top 8 tournament that we had sponsored. We had a cup, and for a strange reason that has to do with our apartheid years, the league itself actually owned what's effectively the FA Cup. The FA, the Football Association, doesn't own the cup, which is a bit of an anomaly from the rest of the world. And when I was SAFA CEO, it's a problem that the league doesn't, that the FA doesn't own the cup. But nevertheless, the league owned the cup. We had a league cup, we had a top 8 tournament, and we had and all of those were sponsored. And from that sponsorship, we had prize money and we had participation money. So we were able to provide money to the clubs, not just to the ones that were winning, but also some participation money all the way down through the ranks. So it was important that you had a product that sponsors wanted to attach their brand to. Now, they are only going to get the returns that they want if they're putting in big money, if they are able to get their sponsorship branding onto television, because television is the way that you achieve an audience. Well, at least in my days, then it was the only way. Now, of course, you have social media and a whole range of other ways that you can reach an audience that didn't exist back then. But television audiences were and still remain a really important part of any sponsorship of any football business. And we know the fact in the English Premier League, it's the television rights that drive the success of that league. It's the television rights that certainly has driven the success of the Premier Soccer League in South Africa as well. But so you've got to have a television product that sponsors want to take part, and then you have to make sure that you maximize the delivery of that sponsorship return. So what does that mean? It means you have to have your perimeter boards up, and they have to be consistent. For every televised match, there has to be a consistent offering of television of perimeter boards. So that was another important thing that the league did from the beginning and still does. It centralized the control of the perimeter boards for all televised matches. So for televised matches, the league actually, we appointed a partner, Worldwide Sports, who then delivered for us and made sure that there was a perimeter board, that perimeter boards in those days, they weren't electronic, they've become electronic in many instances. But even if they're not electronic, we made sure that there was a consistent set of perimeter boards at every televised match. Now, what does that mean? It means that you can guarantee your sponsors a return. Now, I don't know what the situation is, because we aren't able to, and I haven't watched much of Nigerian league football. I have seen perimeter boards, but I don't know if those are done in a consistent way for every televised game. If they're not, you're leaking money, because you cannot then track and give a return to a sponsor that says for every R1 million or every whatever you put in, you're going to get a 5-time return. How do they measure that return? They measure that return through brand exposure. Whether it's exposure on the sleeves, on the chest, of course the clubs keep the rights to the chest, but the league has its own place on the sleeves. But the league and its sponsors, they must own the perimeter board space. And of course the clubs must be able to have their own sponsors having their space within that. So we would have a plan for the perimeter boards. They were put up by an outside partner that was accountable to the league, so that the league was able to ensure that the brand returns could be there. Similarly with the step and repeat boards for your interviews, your post-match interviews, etc., those have to be controlled and done in such a way that you do not leak revenue. Because for every sponsor, every time that it's not there, you're losing money that you could be earning as a league, that you could then redistribute to the clubs.
Okay, let's look at your time at SAFA and how it affected the PSL. What was the focus when you were at SAFA? We're going to come back to your PSL tenure. I just want to put this in at this point in time. What was the focus when you were at SAFA? Was it in growing Bafana Bafana, or it was in growing the PSL? Where did you see the money at that time?
So the relationship between SAFA and the PSL, like it is between the FA and the English Premier League, is that the PSL is a separate entity. Okay. It has its own governance, it's its own finances, it raises its own money, it runs independently to a degree, 90% independently of the Football Association. And it actually pays some money to the Football Association, not enough in my mind. It should be paying more. The Football Association controls the referees. It controls the club licensing, which is an important control mechanism for it. And of course, the league has members that sit as a special member on the board of the Football Association. The chairman of the league is always the vice president of the Football Association, or one of the vice presidents of the Football Association. The league itself has, I think, 4 members or 5 members on the board of governors, on the National Executive Committee of the Football Association. So the Football Association has a different mandate. Its mandate obviously is all of football, but it has to focus on the national teams. There are 9 national teams that we have in our country, if you count futsal and the youth teams. It has to focus on development. It has to focus on officiating. It has to focus on regulation and governance. It has to focus on putting in place all the structures of talent identification and development from the lowest levels. SAFA has got South African Football Association has got 343 local football associations, which is where clubs play, register and participate in local leagues, local structures. Then there's 52 regional structures, and then the national body. So it's a very, very big organization to govern. It's got a very different mandate, and it is judged by the success of the national team, primarily Bafana Bafana, although of course Banyana are really and a growing important part of that.
Okay. So, yeah. Okay, so I was going to ask, and that's the point that the last point that you made. The reason I asked about whether, the PSL was the priority or whether Bafana Bafana was the priority was because I wanted to know how the influence of Bafana Bafana on the, what sort of influence he had on the success of the PSL. Did it make a difference that the majority of the players in Bafana were from the PSL? Did that drive the popularity of the PSL, for instance?
So this is an interesting thing, and it's a question that I wrestle with when I think about South African football. When I was a PSL CEO,
okay,
there were a number of challenges. Firstly, there was not a coordinated FIFA calendar, and what that meant was that international matches, particularly friendlies, SAFA could call those pretty much at any time. There weren't dates, there weren't international windows as there are now. And the rule was that if you were a club and you had more than 3 players called up into a national team, whether it was Bafana or the under-23s or the under-20s, if you had more than 3 players called up into the national team, you had the right to request for a postponement of your league fixture. And that led to a massive, massive challenge. Not only that, as we all know, the challenges with CAF participation from a club perspective. When I was CEO, Mamelodi Sundowns for the first time got to the finals of the CAF Champions League, and we had to postpone the league fixtures that they were participating in, and of course they went right to the end. So we had more and more fixtures that were piling up. And that led to what I think was the biggest, the thing that I lived with the most, the worst part of my time at SAFA. But it's a pertinent thing to remember, is that I was CEO at the time of the Ellis Park Stadium disaster, when 43 people tragically died in the football match between Orlando Pirates and Kaizer Chiefs in April of 2001. And the reason that match and that tragedy happened, the background to that reason was that we had all of these fixture postponements, and we couldn't fixture the derby on a weekend because we had no weekends left in the season. So we had to make it a midweek fixture, and of course a nighttime fixture, and that just led to a series of catastrophes that ended up in that terrible tragedy. So the point I'm making is that there's a big difference now. The other thing that was very different back then was Bafana. If you take our winning squad in 1996 and the one that went to the first World Cup in 1998, and in 2000 we played in Ghana, we got to the finals, I think. Yes, we got to the finals. Most of our players, 80% of our players were playing abroad. They weren't playing in the PSL. The reason for that was that players were not paid well in the PSL back in those days because there wasn't enough money in the ecosystem of the league to pay players good salaries. One of the challenges we have now, from a SAFA perspective, not a league perspective, from a SAFA perspective, is that in fact, ironically, and this is just my own opinion, ironically, the very success of our league has, I think, had a negative impact on Bafana. Because unlike whenever we play matches across the continent in qualifying, we play Cape Verde Islands. We've got whatever 500,000 total population or less. But when you look at their players, where they're all playing in Portugal, or in Spain, or Italy. They're playing in these top competitive global leagues. And you look at Bafana, and 95% of the players are playing in the PSL. Now, for the PSL, that's fantastic because you're getting, there's a wonderful thing to say that we've got our Bafana players playing in the local league. And the reason they can do that is that the league is so successful that they can pay these players really good salaries. In fact, they compete with the sort of second-tier salaries that players are earning if they're playing in Europe. So, but for the downside for the national team, I believe, and it's my opinion, is that there's not enough of a burning economic incentive for our very good players to go and make a career in the international leagues. And what's that downside? That downside is that they're not playing week in and week out against the world's best players. And, unlike if you take your Nigerian national team, your players, I don't know, probably at least 80% of your players, if not more, are playing in the top leagues around the world, whether it's the Premier League or La Liga or Serie A, whichever it might be. So there's a ironic downside from a SAFA perspective, but it's a very big upside from the league's perspective, and that's part of I think our ongoing challenges and developments that we have to face in this country.
I'd like to have your problem, actually, if you no, it's in truth. I think I think the opposite is the case in Nigeria, right? Where our best players don't even play in the league at all. Before they have an opportunity to play in our league, they've already been, shipped overseas to go and play, And so what you then have is a situation where, the league is then left with the rest, the best of the rest. And I think that, when you look at it from the commercial perspective, a lot of people playing in the PSL, earning a lot of money in South Africa is good for your economy as well. So I guess that in every situation we have to look at the pros and cons, I suppose. But given the state of Nigerian football right now, I think I'd rather have your problem. Robin, we're going to go on a very short break, and when we return, this time we're going to focus more on the MPFL.
Increase the reach of your events or business services. To advertise on Plus TV Africa, please call 0906 000 5719 or 0909 040 8408, or send an email to marketing@plustvafrica.com. Plus TV Africa. Big stories live here.
You're welcome back to Sports Business with Orufour Ezaga. You're watching Plus TV Africa, and we're reaching you live from our studios in Lagos. We've been having a very engrossing time with Dr. Robin Peterson, a former CEO of the South African Football Association, as well as the South African Premier Soccer League, the PSL. Doc, okay, so welcome back. We're going to look at a few moments in the MPFL where we see some really good quality football, and we're still trying to get the fans to hop on the train and to generate the sort of support that the league needs for us to attract the corporate sponsors and the like. So if we look at that, we'll come back and then we'll talk a bit more about what we need to do in the MPFL.
Here's Uche. Now passing behind the defense. It's brilliant! What a fantastic goal!
Minutes on the clock. Remo starts now. Fakma winner, chesting the ball beautifully. Finding Alex Oyowa to his left hand side. Back now to Fakma winner, Tbilisi. Alex Oyowa. Oyowa again! Remo Stars take the lead inside 5 minutes of the second 45. And what more than they deserve of all of their brilliant football. The Sky Blue Stars have indeed conjured up a way to break down this resilient defensive half of Rangers International. Remo Stars to take the lead. It's a brilliant give and go from the Sky Blue Stars. Alex Oyowa would celebrate with what would be his very first ever goal in the Sky Blue Stars colour. Just one beyond Lucky Abdullahi.
The league is beginning to be a bit more interesting, and to be fair, the interest of fans is beginning to rise. We now have the television on. We now have the league matches, most of the league matches on television, and we have a streaming platform that also streams the most matches. All right, so the opportunity is there, but we still don't have the deal for the MPFL is still a long shot from what probably your first ever television deal was in South Africa. It's still very far. You know, just before I came to the studio, I did something of a table of what you guys earn in South Africa, what the players earn in South Africa, and what the players earn in Nigeria. It is as if we belong to different worlds entirely. And this is the African continent. Yeah, that's the slide there. You know, I don't know how far this is true, but I got this from the Gauteng website, where the top earner in South Africa is earning 106 million naira a month. And the top earner in Nigeria is earning just 1.3 million naira a month. So that's where, so you see why I say to you, Robin, that I would rather have your problem, where, you know, the best players choose to play now in Nigeria rather than just jump overseas at the slightest opportunity. So what do you think what do you think we have to do now, Robin? How do you think we can attract the money into our leagues?
So let me go back and just comment on what you've said. And so I think the challenge is that if your players are playing in the top 3 or 4 leagues in the world, that's great for your national team. Yeah. Your challenge, I see it, and I remember doing the study with my partner in SPN Africa, Emeka Nyadike. Okay. And we were looking at the number of Nigerian players playing in leagues across the world, you know, from Afghanistan to Hungary to wherever, to South Africa. And there were hundreds. So you're not just losing your top tier, you're losing your second, third, and fourth tier. Absolutely. Of players. So that's a really big challenge. And you know, as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, the NPFL is not structured like the PSL in the sense that the clubs don't run the league. Yeah. It's run by the FA. I could be wrong, but that's the information that I think I have. And I'll go back to...
Sorry, Robin, 1 second. The NPFL is run by an NPFL board. It's not, yeah, and it is it's run by an NPFL board, and then they have a strategic partner that's an investment banking firm in Nigeria, yeah. And then there's the NFF, which it's a bit of a of a complex structure. There's the NFF, which is the football federation. There's the league body that oversees the league that is appointed by the NFF. And then there's the strategic partner that's the investment banking firm. You know, so that's what it is like at the moment.
So obviously in South Africa, as I mentioned before, the PSL, like they did in England when the Premier League broke away effectively from the control of the Football Association and set themselves up, South Africa worked slightly differently because during apartheid, during our terrible years of apartheid, we were banned from FIFA. So there was effectively no football association. There was a very small amateur body. So the league was the big dog in town because it just ran everything. So when SAFA was formed, the league still kept its own independence. It didn't need to sort of break away as the English Premier League did when they had their, in a sense, a palace coup against the Football Association and set themselves up independently. Now, I think there are pros and cons to both. So I'm not, but here's the thing: the PSL is owned and run by the clubs. So if you are a club in the Premier Soccer League and there are representatives, clubs from the first division, you have a seat on the board of governors. There's also obviously an executive committee. That's a big difference from when I was there and what they have now, and I think it was a very, very wise governance decision that they took. When I was there, they had an independent chairperson and the CEO, and then the rest of the governance structure was the board of governors, and that meant every club, so there were in those days 18 clubs, Every club had its member on the board of governors, and there were 2 representatives from the first division. And they governed, they employed the CEO, they ran the league. So when decisions were made about how does the sponsorship money get spent, it was there. They all had access to that, and they made the decisions about how that money would be spent. It wasn't controlled by another body who would then, it was determined by the clubs themselves. So effectively it made for a difficult governance as a CEO, because clubs are wanting, one, to look after their own interests, but they also recognized that without a strong league, their own interests would be minimized. So that was an important thing, that the clubs effectively have a very strong say or run the governance structure of the league. The big change that happened after I left, we started the process, we had some workshops when I was CEO, but it kicked in a few years later, was they set up an executive committee, and in fact the clubs then made the decision that they would appoint Dr. Khoza as the chair. Now that was a very difficult and controversial decision, because it's very rare that you have a club owner who's also the chair of the league, and of course it can lead to all kinds of challenges, because there could be all kinds of ways in which that team gets favored. What was interesting was that the clubs decided among themselves that they would want to have Dr. Khoza to become the chair, and he's done an incredible job to build the brand of the league. And I think the key to that is that he was a man, and still is a man, who always, yes, he was a club owner and he did look after his own club very well, but he always saw that the league itself must come first, because without a successful league, there would not be a successful club. So what that meant is that as the money comes in, whether it's from broadcast rights, whether it's from sponsorship rights, the clubs themselves determined how that money gets spent and split. And that's really, I think, has enabled them to get a much bigger share of the pie than you will get in other circumstances. So that was important from the governance point of view. I think that's a key part.
Okay.
A key difference.
Okay. Here again, the clubs are powerful in the structure that we have today, but it's not that they take all the decisions, but they're a very strong block in the decision making process. Okay, so looking at the MPFL, and looking at how we have to struggle for support in the face of the overwhelming popularity of the European leagues. And it's not just Nigeria, it's Sub-Saharan Africa, much of Sub-Saharan Africa. How do we win our fans back? Because we don't have anywhere near this kind of resources that they have in Europe, So what do we do, essentially, to be able to let fans in Africa know that, guys, you've got to support your clubs, because that's the only route to commercial success. And even if the clubs, or even if the league managers are not doing a good job, then maybe the fight to have is how do we get these guys out and get competent managers, as opposed to just abandoning your league more or less?
Yeah, I think that the structure of governance must not only be a governance for the league, it's got to be how the clubs are governed. And there's two parts of that. There's the club licensing, let's call it a tool for club governance and development. If FIFA has set in place this whole club licensing structure, and if that club licensing structure is properly applied and implemented and monitored, you are able to then set standards for your coaches, set standards for teams, how they are governed, set standards for teams, how they have development structures in place, how they have women's football in place, etc., etc. In order to play in a league at certain levels, you have to have certain things in place. Now, it's quite a long process to implement a club governance structure fully, but you have to start somewhere and agree amongst the teams what are the minimum things that we need to ensure in conversation with the Football Association. How do we do that? How are the clubs governed there? You know, are they run like businesses? Are they run professionally, or are they just a pet project of someone? The most successful clubs in South Africa have gradually professionalized. There always used to be the claim back in my day that some of the clubs were run out of the trunk of a car, and that was true to a point. You know, the club owner, who probably was a wealthy businessman in his own right, funded the team, funded the club, and ran it back. You know, ran it out of his car. Now that's changed. That doesn't exist in South Africa anymore. But even back in my time, that certainly did exist with some of the clubs. So I think, you know, the need to have consultancy services that the league offers to clubs, marketing support that the league offers to clubs, governance things that they insist upon. All of those things, I think you need to build an environment at a league level, supported by the Football Association, that provides a gradual professionalizing and governance of clubs, so that they can, that sponsors then are confident to put money into. Clubs, even in South Africa, some clubs battle to get sponsors. That's always been a challenge. But you know, most of the clubs in the PSL now have got their own jersey sponsor or club sponsor. But they will only have that if they run professionally. If they're not run professionally, they're not going to get a sponsor. So you know, maybe the league has to be looking at how does it support its clubs through consultancy services, through marketing services. You know, there are massive opportunities that didn't exist back in my time there, which I alluded to, and that's the whole power now of your different forms of low-cost, high-value content that clubs, players, teams can start to produce through social media, through mobile phones, and so on, to start to build a media strategy that will attract and keep fans by telling the conversation, telling the stories, getting those out there. Yeah. And I think that you know, if I were there in Nigeria, I know you guys, you know, Nigeria's got a massive population. The young people are on their mobile phones the whole time. How are the clubs tapping into those ways of getting their stories out, of building a local fan presence, of building local community support, and mobilizing that through social media and other forms like that? Okay.
Dr. Robin, it's been very nice having you on the program. If you have a last word, is there something, have you ever worked in Nigeria? Is there anything that will bring you here to come and do any work with say the league, for instance, or any other league in the country? Very quickly, so that we'll wrap up the program.
I have worked in Nigeria, but in a different sector altogether. In between my time at the PSL and my time in SAFA, I actually ran a health products business, and we set one up. And I'm busy working with a partner now in Nigeria in another business where we're bringing South African wines into the Nigerian market. But I would love to be able to, you know, I have a great partner, Emeka Enyadike, who of course is a legend in Nigerian football from an administration and a media point of view. And I think that mobilizing the insights of, I'd love to help, you know, if there's an opportunity, share my wisdom. I love Nigeria, I love Nigerian people, and I think you're a market that is so incredibly powerful. It's a shame that the league is not as successful as I think it could and should be.
Okay, no, this is just the beginning of our engagement. I'll be hoping that we can get you back on this program at some other point in the future to say more of what I know you still have to say about, not just the Nigerian League, the PSL and the leagues across the sub-Saharan African region. Thanks for honoring the invitation. It's been a very engaging time, and wish you the best for the rest of the day. And And so to you viewers, thanks for tuning in. It's Happy Independence Day, Nigeria. It's the 64th independence, and we hope to build on from here. It's not just problems, problems, problems. Even you watching me now can do something about, making Nigeria a better country going into the future. Until we meet again next week, this is me, Orufour Ezaga, saying, be productive, be good, and stay safe.
Minding your mannerisms in public signals civility. Your behavior determines how others perceive you, and if you can leave a good impression, why not?
When it comes to that, it's about really making sure that you don't do something that will make people upset. So let me give you a typical example, public toilet, right? You want to walk into that washroom nice and clean, and at the same time, you want to leave it clean for someone else to use it like that. But what you find is that some people use it haphazardly. They don't care about who's coming in next. And of course, people are disgruntled by the way the place is dirty, not kept well. And of course, we have a problem there, health and hygiene, right? That's a public place. When you think about the airplane, for example, the same thing as well. You are on the plane and you have children, and the children are making a whole lot of noise. You're disturbing the elderly people and other people who are sharing the same space with you. So when you're on the plane, you have to be mindful of other people that are going to be using it. So even when you're sitting down, it's a confined space, right? So you don't want to disturb other people. You want to make sure that you have a smooth ride without upsetting anyone while you're in that public space. What about when you're at the cinema as well? A cinema is a place and a library, where you have to keep quiet. You don't want someone to keep telling you, shh, shh. What does that mean? You're not supposed to use your phone when you're in such places, like a library, for instance. Then you're in the supermarket as well. A whole lot of things. And many places where people are, I won't say maybe ignorant of other people, right? They think they're in their home. So you're in a reception in a restaurant, or you're in the reception of a hotel. You're not going to put your feet on the desk or on the table and you're watching the TV as if you're in your sitting room, right? So people wouldn't like that. I've seen cases where some people are they're in the not waiting room. There's a public place where you can sit down in a hotel, right? And some people have taken off their shoes, put their feet on the table, and their hand behind them, they're watching the news. And like, hey, this is not your sitting room. You don't do things like that. Then when you talk about dining environments, you're in a restaurant. I have literally seen people, and I've done videos on it as well, where they've given you a napkin. It's for your hands. Wipe your hands down because you're about to eat. Then guess what happens? You see them using the same napkin to wipe their face, to wipe their hair. I've seen them do this. I'm like, oh, this is not the bathroom. So it's really about perception and how you want people to see you when you're in a public place.
When in the public, it is important to be courteous and respectful of others. You might not always know the rules, but if you make a genuine effort to be considerate of others with the intent not to disturb them, the conscious effort would show.
For me, I would love to see an environment where when we see something that is not right, we correct. I've done that severally, and I'm brave enough to do that. And most times when I finish speaking to the person says sorry, because maybe at the time they were doing it, they didn't realize how bad it was and the consequences to another person. But most times you find that they are truly sorry because it just didn't come down to that.
The rules of behavior when we're in public vary from culture to culture.
If you've ever been to Singapore and you're in a public train or any public environment, you're not allowed to chew chewing gum. And they made it a law. And so now people are very conscious. Don't chew chewing gum, you get fined, you can be imprisoned. So they've made it part and parcel of their life.
However, culture is an ever-evolving phenomenon that changes as the needs of the people changes. We all have rights, but it has limitations where the exercise of your rights begins to infringe on the rights of others. Behaviors such as playing music or videos loudly on your phone in public, receiving calls loudly in public places, or even blowing horns arbitrarily can be seen as offensive. Here are some common etiquette to take note of in public. Offer up your seat. If you're in perfectly good health, offer your seat to anyone who is either in poor health or pregnant. Make commuting easier for those who need it. Let the waiter come to you. Never yell or wave your hand at a waiter while dining. Make their job easier by being patient or politely get their attention when they pass by. Know your audience. Be aware of who's around before engaging in hot topics. Respecting people's sensibilities is the proper way to behave. Make sure to tip. Tipping is essential for certain employees to make a decent income. Make sure to leave a tip as a token of your gratitude whenever possible. Even services you might not think of, like a haircut or dog grooming. Say excuse me. It's the polite thing to do when you bump into someone. Even if you're not really the one to blame, why not just avoid conflict and brush off the situation? Use a coaster. Spilling isn't the only way to make a mess with your cold beverage. Say please and thank you, especially to those closest to you. Smile at the cashier, the bank teller, the security man, your co-worker, even if he or she doesn't smile back. Hold the door for the person behind you. And if someone holds the door for you, remember to say thank you. Step outside to answer your phone calls. Sometimes you have to take an important call. It is important to step outside to take your call because it's not fun to hear your conversation when we're trapped behind you in a line. Give people a pass. Cranky salesperson, nasty driver, you have no idea what's going on with that person right now. You don't have to reward ugly behavior with your own nastiness, which only perpetuates the cycle. Look at the person who's speaking to you. It is polite to listen to people who are talking to you and not just type away on your smartphone. Let someone go in front of you in line. Cough or sneeze into your elbow. Put your smartphone away during meals. Be on time. Ask before posting. Not everyone wants to be all over social media and you're not a reporter, so stop spreading the news. Keep the noise down at work. Silence the ringer on your phone. Speak quietly and turn the sound down on your dinging emails so it's not bugging everyone you work with. Wash your hands after using the bathroom. Park your shopping cart on the side of the aisle. Ask permission to use someone's first name. Clean up after yourself, at home, at work, at a friend's house. Ask before bringing a guest. Don't assume they're automatically invited no matter how well you know your host or hostess. Stay at home when you're sick. Reach out to people who are grieving. Don't pretend nothing happened. If you don't know what to do or say, you can simply say you're sorry. Let people get off the elevator first before you get on. The same rules apply to trains and buses. Silence your smartphone at the movies and stop crinkling that candy wrapper so loudly while you're at it. Help someone who's clearly struggling. The next time you see someone straining to reach something on the highest shelf at the grocery store, help him or her out. Skip controversial or nosy topics at parties. Politics, religion, or asking when they're getting pregnant or how much weight they lost. Those topics are sensitive and should be off the table. When you enter a room, greet everyone. Return calls. If someone takes the time to leave you a voicemail, take the time to call him or her back. Use an earphone or headphone in public while scrolling through social media.
Hello and welcome. My name is Nyamgul Agaji. This is the news update. President Bola Tinubu has submitted 4 tax reform bills to the House of Representatives for consideration and quick passage. The president, in a letter at plenary by Speaker Abbas Tajuddin on Thursday, said the bills were designed in line with the objectives of his administration. According to the letter, the bills are the Nigeria Tax Bill 2024, which is expected to provide the fiscal work for tax in the country, and the Tax Administration Bill, which will provide clear and concise legal framework for all taxes in the country and reduce disputes. The others are the Nigeria Revenue Service Establishment Bill, which will repeal the Federal Inland Revenue Service Act and establish the Nigeria Revenue Service, and the Joint Revenue Board Establishment Bill, which will create a tax tribunal and a tax ombudsman. Tinubu said the bills will strengthen fiscal institutions in the country and align with the objective of the government. Ahead of the submission of the report of the 10-member Inter-Ministerial Committee on implementation of the Supreme Court ruling on local government areas autonomy next week, state governors have begun fresh lobbying against the enforcement of the verdict. The panel, headed by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Judge Akume, has concluded its assignment and is expected to submit its report on or before October 13, according to findings. Under former President Muhammadu Buhari, the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit issued a regulation effective from June 1, 2019, banning transactions on state and local governments' joint accounts. Funds were sent directly to the accounts of the local government. It also limited cash withdrawals from local government accounts to a maximum amount of 500,000 naira per day, with penalties for banks that failed to comply. Supporters and members of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, in Rivers State have staged a street protest against the planned local government elections scheduled to hold on Saturday, October 5, 2024 in the state. The protesters had earlier gathered at the party secretariat in Port Harcourt on Thursday morning before heating the streets for the protests. Our correspondent reports that the placard-carrying protesters are believed to be factional members of the PDP in the state and supporters of the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, FCT, Chief Nyesom Wike. Recall that the Governor, Siminalayi Fubara, has in a statewide broadcast on Wednesday declared Thursday, October 3 and Friday, October 4, 2024 as public holidays in the state to enable residents travel to their various communities to fully participate in the forthcoming Saturday, October 5 local government elections. Fubara further announced strict restriction of vehicular movements of residents from midnight on Friday, October 4 to 5 p.m. on election day. Meanwhile, the All Progressives Congress APC in Rivers State has accused the Governor Fubara-led administration of drifting the state into a state of lawlessness by insisting on going ahead with the October 5, 2024 local government elections. The national leadership of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, is expected to meet today, Thursday, in the Federal Capital Territory, FCT, Abuja. The meeting is coming after a series of pre-strike notices issued to the federal government by the union over the inability of the government to fulfill previous promises. Recall that ASU on September 24 issued the federal government a 14-day strike notice with a vow to shut down the nation's universities if their long-standing grievances were not addressed. The 14-day ultimatum followed a previous 21-day notice issued by the union on August 18 demanding that the government should address their demands. From other parts of Africa, 2 vessels carrying migrants from Africa sank in the Red Sea off the coast of Djibouti, killing 45 people, according to the UN Migration Agency. The boats had departed from Yemen, carrying 310 people, the International Organization of Migration said. The UN agency, which was assisting search and rescue efforts, said on the social media platform X that 32 survivors were rescued. Djibouti's Coast Guard said the tragedy struck some 150 meters off a beach near the northwest Khor Anga region. It said joint rescue efforts was underway and 115 survivors were rescued.
As they approached the Djiboutian coast, the smugglers forced the occupants of the boat to disembark in the middle of the sea. You can imagine it's such a violent area, the sea itself, and a lot of these migrants who didn't know how to swim, even those who knew how to swim, but because of the currents and how strong the sea is, quite a few of them perished. If there is nothing for them to go back home to, you might see them taking to the high seas in a couple of months. And that's what we don't want to happen. We don't want them to risk themselves, to risk their lives. As you know, migration is good. It's what what makes civilization the way it is, creating cross-pollinations, creating the possibility and providing the space for innovation, but it has to be done the right way.
Outside Africa now, UN Chief Antonio Guterres called on Wednesday for an end to the sickening circle of escalation in the Middle East, while specifically condemning Iran over its latest missile attack after facing harsh criticisms from Israel. The Secretary General was speaking at an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council called after Iran on Tuesday launched a massive missile barrage at Israel, which has ramped up its offensive against Hezbollah in Lebanon. Israel's pledge to respond to the Iranian missile attack has raised fears of spiraling region-wide war, sending diplomats scrambling for options to de-escalate the situation. Iran in turn said it would launch an even bigger attack if Israel makes good on its pledge. Israel shifted its focus last month from the war in Gaza, which was sparked by October 7 attacks by Iranian-backed Hamas, to secure its northern border with Lebanon. In business news, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited has again failed to begin fuel production at the Port Harcourt refinery in Rivers State. This is despite the refinery failing to commence operations after about 6 postponements as of August 2024. The promises made to Nigerians by the Federal Minister of Petroleum Resources and NNPC about the refinery have continued to hit brick walls. After the failure of the early August promise, the Chief Financial Officer of the NNPC, Umar Ajia, said the Port Harcourt refinery will commence operations in September 2024. Speaking to journalists in August, Ajia had said petroleum products would be ready for testing before being supplied to the domestic market in September. As at September end, the NNPC did not give an update about the refinery. Our correspondent contacted the NNPC last week for an update about the refinery, but there was no response. The Chief Corporate Communications Officer of the oil firm, Olufemi Soneye, did not reply to inquiries sent to him on September 22 and 30, 2024. However, Marie Techmond SPA, the contractor overseeing the rehabilitation of the Port Harcourt refinery, said it would provide details on the project's completion by or before October 2, which has passed. The contractor conveyed this through a law firm, Olajide Oyewole LLP, in response to a letter from a senior advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana, who had inquired about the completion timeline for the refinery's rehabilitation. In entertainment news, the 2024 Nollywood African Golden Award has held with glitz and glamour in Agbo, Delta State. The award was in 3 categories: the celebration of Nollywood artists, individuals and organizations that have supported Nollywood, and the humanitarian award. The award ceremony featured presentation of awards, dance and stand-up comedy. It was attended from all parts of the country as well as other countries such as Gambia, Ghana and Europe. Our Sabah correspondent Akpomejero Friday reports that the organizer and the president of Nollywood African Golden Award, Percy Monday Adoki, said that the yearly event spurs the artists and other awardees to put their best in the trade that had contributed immensely to the development of the country through employment and more. Other awardees at the occasion praised the essence of the Nollywood African Golden Award, noting that the Nollywood industry needs constant celebration and encouragement. They noted that the economic challenges in the country are affecting Nollywood badly, as sales have reduced as well as the cost of production. They called on the government to assist the industry that has taken millions out of the unemployment market for sustainability. And finally, sports news. The groundbreaking partnership contract has been signed between Nigerian company Act Sports Dioyibo Limited and Italy's Torino FC. The deal aims to advance football development in Nigeria and Ghana. The contract signed by Gianluca Cabella of Torino FC and Pastor Samuel R. Oyibo of Act Sports will cover the training of coaches, development of young talents, and establishment of a football academy. This collaboration gives Act Sports the latitude to implement strategies that will enhance the growth of the game in both countries. It builds on ACT Sports' recent consulting role with the Delta State Football Association, DFA. Endorsed by Torino FC President Urbano R. Cairo, the agreement is poised to revolutionize the region's football landscape. Comprehensive training programs will transfer elite-level knowledge and methodology from one of Italy's most prestigious academies. According to ACT Sports CEO Pastor Samuel R. Oyibo, the DFA's decision to partner with his company as Torino FC's representative in Nigeria is a strategic move. It aligns with the broader efforts to nurture talent and foster long-term grassroots football development. The academy will serve as a breeding ground for young talents, offering them a platform to develop their skills and pursue professional careers.
Hello to everyone. I am Gianluca Cabella, the director of Torino FC Academy in Italy and the world. And I am very, very happy to say that until today we start the partnership with ACT Sport in Nigeria and Ghana. Torino FC give the right to Samuel Oyibo to use the brand of Torino FC Academy in Nigeria and Ghana to promotion event and program and training of the guys in football in Ghana and Nigeria. I am very, very happy to work with Samuel and start a big project for everyone. I hope to meet you early, and I say hello and see you later. Bye-bye.
And that's the news update. For more stories, please follow us on Facebook, X, and Instagram, and do subscribe to our YouTube channel at Plus TV Africa and Plus TV Africa Lifestyle. You can also view us on limex.tv and Glow TV apps anywhere in the world. My name is Nyam Gul Agaji. Thank you for being there.
I will take you through this amazingness today.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Buki November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Nigeria is witnessing an increase in entrepreneurs, startup companies, and small and micro-scale businesses. Economists say one of the major reasons for this is a problem that has plagued the country: unemployment. Many Nigerians spend several years at home jobless before securing their first jobs or settling for other options. The National Bureau of Statistics puts the country's unemployment rate at 33.3%, the highest on record. Rather than sit at home and complain, more young people are becoming innovative and turning their hobbies into businesses. Olayanwaju sold clothes in his undergraduate days to make extra income. He now does the same thing, but this time around to make a living.
It came as a motivation for me since my university period, because I actually went into selling of NYSC kits, selling all these basic minor clothes. And after a while, after going to service, it occurred to me that the kind of set of people I roll with, this is what is going on in town. This is the fashion store. This is the brand. And I've been known as Roger Wears. So why is Roger Wears still selling this? Why can't he just move up from this business into the main industry?
Samuel Joy learned to cut hair during her days of unemployment. It's now what she does for a living.
Actually, it hasn't really been easy though, but a lot of challenges ahead of it, and some I've faced though, and it's cool. But I love it being, I was once a tomboy. That's when I learned barbing. And ever since then, I think I've been able to convince people to believe my skills.
Unemployment and poverty also forced Willie to be a barber on the streets of highbrow Victoria Island in Lagos.
When I was growing up, father actually wanted me to do something good. He wanted me to go to school, wanted me to have a good grades in school. Well, you know the system in the country. When after the school stage, you come back, you graduate from school, you still don't have good jobs out there.
On the flip side, unemployment has led to the stagnation of some individuals who find it tough to adapt because of their specializations. Wale Scott, a professional sports broadcaster, lost his job at the peak of his career. His unemployment journey lasted about 7 years. Moving on and getting another job was more difficult than he had imagined it would be.
A Wale Scott with all that talent doesn't have a job. But I realized that every office I went to, when I picked myself up, when I get there, the guys who are in my department there are like, I beg, I space no day, because they have job security problems. As in, if this guy comes, he's going to take our job. That was my major reason why I didn't get a job that early. Everybody felt like, it's good. If he comes, he's going to take our job and all that. So I didn't get a job for a long time.
All this doesn't mean there aren't people who still get white-collar jobs. But what factors make some people employable and others unemployable?
As a job seeker, you need to position yourself to get that fresh information. The longer a job opening is out there, the reduced or the more reduced your chances as a job seeker to get shortlisted. So that's the first thing first is the information and the network. Then the next step is actually your own preparedness, which is your documents, your marketing tool, your CV. Anything that will sell you best should come first on your CV or should be prominent on your CV. There are some schools that if you are a graduate of that school, just put it at the bottom of your CV. So if your CV is a 3-pager, let it be maybe like the second to the last item on your CV. There are some schools that you need to put proudly on the first page because those schools are considered to be thorough and rigorous in their processes. So how do you apply? If you're applying to an online portal, fine, you have to upload your CV still. Or you could apply to an email. Usually such vacancies, there's always an email for you to send your email. So when applying, ensure that you're applying properly. And the basic rules are, the subject must be the job title you're applying for. So for instance, if it's an accounting role, the subject should be accountant or accounting opening, something like that.
Everybody's got talent, but are you actually the right talent for that particular role? Then again, what exactly are you prepared? When I mean the right talent, do you have the right skills? Do you have the right qualification, experience? So all this, and also it has to do with your behavioral attributes for the role. So if you have all this, yes, maybe you could actually get qualified for the role. But when you don't have this, it becomes like a misfit for the role. What makes people unemployable is also a determinant of your readiness. Are you available? Are you actually what we want for that role?
At a point in my life, I actually did consider it, and I was back in school. I did consider going into Yahoo Yahoo.
All right, so what changed your mind?
It's something that when I tried to, I felt this adrenaline rush of being scared of being caught, being scared of sitting in jail. It's something that I did try for like a week, not even, it didn't take up to 2 weeks, just a week. And within that week, it's something I understood that, no, this is no way for me. Because, for example, there are a lot of youths that are just like me in these same markets that were into this business. And I've seen a whole lot of them that have bought cars just from this business, that have gotten a house just from this business.
There is no lady that is willing to do something that is illegal. Yeah. It's just due to the, what is it called? The bad economy in our country. Because I see myself as somebody that has really been focused from my childhood. There are some ladies that doesn't have patience in doing some things they do. That's why you see some runs girls around.
Our Nigerian youths won't try because go easy. At the kind of primary, from primary to secondary. Secondary, most of them are in university, not graduate. After graduation, on the serve, a year, to be serve. So one serve now, most of them want to say federal, on serve the federal, and one can serve in the states. Instead to can remain one, sibe, on that one le. So I'm out quickly and fashion. Most of them want online business, non she. The about no agency, and want you to not do in business dancing.
So I feel a lot of people actually have this mindset of they want to go into legal ways and make it out of legal ways. So one day they can always say, back then I never had it, but today I have it because I set my mind into this market business and not the other shady business, because no one knows tomorrow.
The problem is not the guys from the outside. It's actually from the inside. You don't get any more respect at home anymore. The wifey doesn't respect you anymore. Your mother, your parents don't respect you anymore. And if you are fortunate that you have siblings who actually have jobs during that period, the parents, people around you tend to actually give the respect to those people, and you lose your respect as the elderly one. So the time I felt I lost was the time that I got into drinking, because people at home expect you to come back and they want to talk to you, they want to insult you, and to forget to get a deaf ear to the insult. You get to get drunk, get high, just come home and sleep. Whatever they're saying, you can't hear them. And it's a terrible mental state when you can't bring money out to feed your family. You can't bring money out to take care of the house. The worst part is when you go out in the mornings, early in the mornings to go and look for a job and come back in the evening, your neighbors are wondering, where does he go every day, sir? As in, when it's time for them to pay for the woman that sweeps the floor, he can't pay. Time to pay for the rent, he can't pay. So where does he go every morning? But you can't stay at home as a man. But you still go out all day, come back at night, no luck. And then nobody at home is understanding that there's no luck, it happens. They're like, why would you have luck?
Most of my friends are already well made, and probably there are times when they will just call me, what's up? Knowing that I'm this kind of person that likes going to parties. I like going out. What's up, Roger? Come on, let's go out. Let's hang out. But due to the fact that I'm jobless and probably have no cash on me, I will just respectfully decline the offer.
Both the private sector and individual have roles to play as far as employment-related issues are concerned. Take the private sectors, for example. Private sectors, or private sector rather, not sectors. The private sector have, they have to help to drive the public sectors in every area where it is failing. I give you a very good example. In the ongoing pandemic, the government of Nigeria has not been able to take to life any vaccine. Not because there are no researchers, not because there are no research institutes, but there were other factors that go into that space to make it happen. One of it is funding of research. We have to start changing the orientation of people. There is the mentality of quick wealth all around, all over the whole place, which is why a whole lot of young people are involved in Yahoo in code and all other things. And when you speak with them, they tell you, oh, it's because there are no jobs. That's why I have to go that way. But in the real sense, there is a due paying process period when people are supposed to commit to a job or a role or a work or a vocation and learn the ropes, become experts.
Everybody has a skill. Yeah. But it's just sacrificing the time and creating the time in making that thing grow in you.
When we talk about vocational trainings, right, I've come, just like you said, not like white collar jobs is not for everyone. I mean, we've come to realize that. At the moment at Jobberman, we are in partnership with the MasterCard Foundation. We are upskilling about 5 million, well, the mandate is 5 million young Nigerians over 5 years, right? And place 3 million of them in work. And of the 3 million of them that we're upskilling, some of the things that have come up is the importance of gig work, the importance of internship. So it's not just having a full-time employment, but having dignified employment, right? And blue-collar jobs also fall under dignified employment. However, because of the country that we're in, a lot of blue-collar jobs are not regarded as dignified, right? So you go anywhere outside the country, so maybe the developed world, and you have like a plumber, you have like a carpenter, and they are regarded and they are respected, right? However, in Nigeria, you have carpenters, you have plumbers, and most times those professions, although not white collar, are not regarded, right? So what we really would love to do is to make these blue collar jobs dignified. And how do we make them dignified? By teaching these people, or teaching people who are going through vocational trainings, the necessary skills that will make them stand out. So yes, white collar jobs are not the only answer when it comes to employment. Blue collar jobs as well are our answer to unemployment.
After all said and done, changing the public perception that white-collar jobs are the only dignified form of labor may just be a start in the eradication of the stigma of unemployment. More people are building businesses from their talents, passions, and hobbies.
It is engagement we need to have.
Those who suffer miscarriages are never taken into account.
Members of the National Assembly are also influence peddlers.
You are sitting on Nigerians' money.
From the barbing, I pay my rent. Barbing, I send my children to school.
A consultative engagement.
No any tangible notification before they ban us.
It's one thing for people to be at your back and the heat of the moment, and another thing for them to still be with you when push comes to shove.
Hello and welcome to the Literary Bar. How are you?